Mo, this is Sarah.
Hi.
Do you have our slides or can we make it possible for one of us to share our slides?
Um, I do not have your slides. Let
Hold
me
on, I gotta attach my sound system.
um, let me see. Uh,
In a second.
you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I can hear you. Good.
How many folks are you expecting?
I'm not sure. It went out in a email to first year parents, so hopefully we'll get a good return. I don't know. It says I can't share my screen. It says I can share a file.
Okay. Hang on a second.
Joyce says she can share too.
She can?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Okay.
Oh, no, she's saying she's willing.
He's willing.
Yeah.
Well,
Joyce, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I'm right here.
I did not incorporate your slides. I just have what you attached.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you said just to use that version.
Sure thing. Share file.
oh, I think I have to make you the presenter. So I'm going to make you the presenter, Sarah. So now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've done one of these events, so I'm just refreshing.
I know. It's nice that we can maybe have a few meetings in person.
So if you're going to want someone else then subsequently to share their machine, we would just pass that. I think we just need to pass the presenter role to them.
We just have one slide deck. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Good.
Okay. Now there's some funny business usually with,
Yeah, you want to go. There you go.
now I want to go to, yep. So do you see the full screen now and not just the note?
Yeah, I'm going to get the otter transcript going.
Do we have any attendees, Mo?
It's like 17.
Hi, 17 parents and families and guests. The number may grow. Some folks are probably still trying to get to work or they're getting up in the morning.
up to 22 attendees.
Okay. Should we go ahead and get started, or do you think we should wait another minute?
I think we could certainly get started. Maybe we could tell folks who are in attendance if they have questions, how we want to engage with them during our presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be able to use the Q&A panel, which they should be able to open with the bottom right-hand corner of their screen. They should be able to have panels that they could submit a question that way.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, families, parents, guests. By now, most of you, all of you have delivered your children to us. And so we're so grateful and thankful that you have trusted us in this most tumultuous time to have your students with us on campus. We have missed them dearly. And we're so glad to have a year, hopefully, that looks a little bit more like what we're used to. So tonight, you'll have a chance to hear from me. I'm Sarah Motionross. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs. And you'll hear from Dr. Elaine Marswalt, who's the Interim Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the College. And you'll hear from Joyce Stern, who's the Dean for Student Success and Academic Advising. So we'll talk you through some ways that we can together support your student success at the college, and we will also make sure that we are watching for your questions, and we can discuss some of your questions at the end or throughout as they come up. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Elaine Marswalt.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Can you confirm everybody can hear me okay? Wonderful. For those I can see. Fantastic. It's so great to be here tonight and to be able to start to share just a little advice with you on how you can support your student in navigating Grinnell College's academic life. First, I want to just mention that we see their experience at Grinnell as living and studying in a thriving community. Last year, as we were navigating a pandemic and a even more different year than we hope this year will be, we adopted the Thrive principles, and these really have translated into all sorts of ways that we do our work at the college and academic success. The Thrive principles, each letter of Thrive stands for the ways that we want to think about how our community works together as a community. The T in Thrive standing for talk and transparency. And this webinar tonight is one part of how we're able to share that with you. The H, our focus on health and safety, which has been a hallmark of our response to the pandemic. Our R standing for reimagining, recognizing that that's something we've been having to do for the last year and a half and that we continue to do this year. The I for our efforts in inclusion and finding ways that we are including everybody in our work. V is thinking about the fact that we all have vulnerabilities that we bring there, and we want to value those vulnerabilities and recognize those. And E, the real experience and importance of empathy. And so you'll hear about Thrive and the principles of Thrive that we've adopted as well throughout the year. But right now, I'm going to talk a little bit about academic life, and you can see some of the key things that we encourage you to encourage your student to be able to do if you're looking for ways to help them navigate their academic life. The first one, building relationships with faculty and staff, and your students already had a chance to do that yesterday and today. They met with their tutorial professors, also their academic advisor. And literally, as we speak right now, registration for first years is underway. They all turned in their registration choices at 4 o'clock today, and our registrar staff are furiously working as we speak, matching student preferences to create a student schedule that they will be able to learn tomorrow and make any adjustments to. For those of you who were able to attend our welcome ceremony last Saturday, you heard me speak about the hallmark of the individual attention and the attention to student learning. That's really the highlight of our academic program. Our faculty, who are recognized nationally and internationally for their teaching and research, are really dedicated to the pedagogies that engage students in a journey of understanding how knowledge is created. And those relationships with faculty are really key. We're also going to talk tonight a little bit about some of the relationships and support with our staff in our community and how important those are going to be for helping student success. And I also want to just acknowledge that the study of the liberal arts right now will allow your student to engage in some of the most pressing issues facing society today, both locally and globally. And we really value that local global experience that our students are able to have here at Grinnell. We know that the experiences your students have had in the past year and a half have really given them some resiliency, ability to meet challenges, and we're just so excited to bring them, as Sarah noted, back into our community to be able to be together in person, to exchange ideas, to learn from one another in this community of learning. We absolutely encourage your students to make use of our resources, including our academic support centers. I want to highlight some of those, and I know that Joyce will be talking more about those as well. But our writing, reading, and speaking center, our math and science learning center, our library labs, we have a very robust peer mentoring and tutoring programs. And one of the things I really want to highlight for you is that they're there to serve all of our students, right? And to ensure all of our students' success. Students don't have to be struggling or think they're struggling to make use of these resources. Students who are struggling absolutely should. Students who are going to have challenges, adjusting to college work, it's going to be different than what they've had. And all of these resources, which will be shared with them in their classes. But this is one of the things, you may not remember the details of what they are, but if your student is talking to you about challenges, you might say, I know there are a lot of resources out there. Have your faculty shared any of those? That might be one example of a question that you can do. Well, have you visited that particular lab, or is there a tutor that you can get for this class, or is there a peer mentor that's working for your class? And so I think that's just really important to be thinking about. We invest in these programs and in the staff for these programs to invest in the student success. That's really why we think these are very important. And so we really want to encourage people to seek out those opportunities. I also want to note that we have a rich array of co-curricular activities, and that we hope that all of our students are able to take advantage of those. For example, we pay for music lessons, and so if a student, that's just one small example, right? We've got tuition grants basically to cover music lessons, and we hope that many students will engage in those sort of activities. Yeah, so if we go to the next slide, whoever's running those. Thank you. Yep. So here you can see some additional academic aspects. And during the first year, we emphasize the exploration, and students will have that chance to engage in a range of courses and study of disciplines, some familiar, some new. And like I said, they'll know their schedule tomorrow. The tutorial is starting your students' journey of academic exploration with its emphasis on critical thinking, writing, speaking, and all of that consistent with our mission. Through the individual attention of the small class and the advising, your students are going to have a chance to share education. In the second semester, the first year experience course instructor is going to help them to, that's not good, to continue to develop their skills to contribute to their academic and lifelong success, and be yet another close relationship that students are going to be able to make as they engage in conversations about respect, identity, and living in diverse communities. And then as students continue to progress through our curriculum, they will have a chance to engage in these high impact educational practices, with many courses incorporating the opportunity for research and the chance to engage our broader academic community. Research is an important part of our curriculum. We are committed to offering every student a research opportunity to their time at Grinnell, and it's just one of many exciting ways our students are able to engage in the learning and constructing of new knowledge, which is so exciting about their education. The research opportunities will come in a range of formats, from small seminar style courses where students can explore in depth a topic of choice, to independent study, or even a summer opportunity. First year courses that your students are enrolled in are designed to prepare them for the experience with both skills and knowledge that they will gain. And several of those first year courses will even have smaller research explorations. So if we want to go to the next slide, and I think that translates over to you, Joyce.
Yeah, thank you, Dean Marswalt. So as Sarah Motion Ross said, I am Joyce Stern. My title is Dean for Student Success and Academic Advising, and I've had the pleasure of working at Grinnell for the past 20 years, actually, and I'm also an alum, so I'm sort of deeply Grinnellian. I get to lead a team in an office called Academic Advising, not to be confused with the academic advising your students getting from their tutorial professor, which Dr. Marswalt was just talking about. Our office is really there to devote our time to students' academic success in a wide variety of ways that I won't go into, but we are a resource for your students. What I wanted to do tonight was paint a little bit of a picture for you of some of the common kinds of adjustments, maybe even challenges that most students make as they're shifting from high school to Grinnell, so that you will have a sense of some things that you might anticipate when you have those texting conversations or actual conversations with your student in the coming months. So let me share a few things that are related to this new academic landscape, and then I'm going to talk more, as Dean Marswalt said, about ways that we then support student success through those. So regarding pace and depth of learning, so for many Grinnell students, the kinds of academic work that they encountered in high school and the rate at which they were expected to learn and engage with their academic material was just not quite as challenging as what Grinnell offers. The pace at Grinnell is likely to be faster for some students, and students are highly likely to be more responsible for learning things in a different way. So for example, to simplify, I would say maybe not memorize and regurgitate, but really to be thinking critically, responding verbally and in writing with careful analysis that combines the analysis they're making and their own thinking. So a very different kind of learning, to style of learning, perhaps, for many of them. Another shift that many students make has to do with their time management. For many students, high school, especially pre-pandemic, had a real rhythm to it, getting up early, traveling to school, classes all day long. Maybe after school, they were in a club or a sports team or work. And then home for food and some homework. And this was like repeated every day of the week. College just doesn't have quite such a rhythm to it. You know, what a student tackles on a Monday may be quite different than what they need to do on a Tuesday. And students are also in class many fewer hours than in a high school setting. But on the flip side, they're responsible for doing more on their own outside of class or in combination with classmates, maybe on group projects. So that's another difference. And, you know, learning may have come quite easily prior to this challenge. And especially in the case of those students for whom that's true, they're going to want to be really intentional and strategic in how they use their time in order to learn and engage in these ways. In academic advising, we actually talk about how time management is really self-management, and we want to support students in all students in becoming really self-directed learners. So, you know, I know all of our students are incredibly well prepared to be here, and we certainly wouldn't have admitted them if we weren't completely sure of that. But it's an adjustment, right? This is a shift. And we're shifting also in the midst of a pandemic, which is another level of adjustment that provides some stress. But as Dr. Marswalt has said, we've really got tools to support them. So my third kind of shift I want to talk about is identity development. You know, as I said, all of our students were kind of top performers in high school, really bright, talented, ambitious. The difference is now all their classmates are too. And so whereas your student might have been, you know, among the top of their class, they're going to notice very quickly that they're around a lot of others who were similarly in that, you know, have that capacity. And when this happens, students suddenly feel less smart. You know, we know that their intelligence hasn't changed, their drive, all those things, those characteristics haven't changed, but they sort of feel differently about themselves in many cases, and maybe even assume a kind of imposter syndrome. We know they're well prepared, but what we just want to do is reassure that of students as they adjust to being among a really diverse set of expert learners and have this new opportunity to learn from each other. The image on the slide is referring to the fact that every challenge at Grinnell comes with support. And I just want to introduce 3 people who will get to know your student in the coming weeks. The faculty advisor, again, as Dean Marswalt mentioned, is the tutorial professor, and they've already begun meeting. The CLS, this Careers, Life, and Service Exploratory Advisor, is another person who is already starting to meet with your student in their new student orientation groups. I saw them in our building actually just today doing some of those meetings. And then their residence life coordinator, also who lives in a building, professional staff member living in the building. These 3 people want to know you, your student, want to facilitate their belonging at Grinnell, and will really work with your student on their own intellectual and personal growth. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. So this image repeats those same 3 individuals there in the center who will be mentoring your student. And then it augments, this visual augments it with other kinds of support and advising that we really hope that your student will take advantage of. That middle ring includes people, individuals, and offices who will also get to know your student based on communities that your student is part of. For example, right now your student is getting to know really well their NSO ambassador. So their new student orientation ambassador is a student leader who is role modeling the excitement of engaging at Grinnell and leading the groups to get to know campus. Your students also obviously, just as Dean Marswalt said, getting enrolled in some classes and will be known by their faculty. Our class sizes are small, so the faculty will know your student. And in addition to that, it depends on the community that the student is joining. So maybe you may have an international student who is joining us and will know the team in our international student office, or perhaps your student has a disability and will receive individualized accommodations from our disability resources office. So those are just some examples. That outer ring, the blue ring, represents all of the other, or many of the other, quite frankly, offices and programs at Grinnell that act as a resource really for any student depending on their need and their curiosity. So Dean Marswalt talked about our many academic resource centers. Those are represented there, certainly financial aid, our student health and wellness, our ombuds, the registrar, global engagement, Title IX, campus safety, student assistance, just to name a few. I want to specifically call out student assistance and also academic advising, the office I work with, as places that students not only can come to for assistance, but I want you to know that the inverse is also happening. We're paying attention to students as well. There are members of our community who are told that we would like to know if there is something going on with a student that we could potentially be helping with. And we ask for those notifications to come through our office so that we can identify those students and help them get past any hurdles. So just before I turn this over to Sarah, one last quick thing. I just want to restate that our students are all very ready for this experience, but they're inevitably going to encounter something and need to consult. I tell students all the time that part of adulting is using resources. And so just like Dean Marswalt said, when you hear your student expressing a frustration or struggling with something, another simple question to ask is, who at Grinnell could help you with that? We've been introducing students to resources, and now we've given you a little bit of an overview. We really do want to be part of their journey to help them succeed academically and personally. So thanks, Sarah. I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Joyce. So yes, this is Sarah Motionross again, and I lead the Division of Student Affairs at Grinnell College, and I have the great privilege of working with your amazing students in all things outside the classroom. And I'm here to talk to you today about life on campus and how you can play a role in supporting your student in this transition and throughout their years here. And I've been trying to think about what you might be feeling right now as your students are now here. You've said your goodbyes, and so I'm sure that there's a mix of emotions going on. Maybe it's excitement for them, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's a bit of relief, which would also be very honest, especially after we've been in our homes with our kids a lot the last year and a half, which is also precious time. But I hope what you're hearing from us consistently at the college is that we are highly relationship driven, and we really want to know your students. And we love working with our students to help them thrive here and after Grinnell. But we love to do that in partnership with you. Believe it or not, parents are still hugely influential in the decisions that students make, which I'll talk about again later. But this is really the point that we hope that our partnership really comes together in supporting the thriving of your students. And of course, you know more than anyone that your students have been becoming adults for the past several years. You've been instrumental in preparing them to launch into college, and now they're going to be part of our community, really forever, as they become part of the alumni network after college. So we want them to be thinking now about how they can be in community with one another. It feels especially important in this time of COVID that we look to our mission to serve the common good, and that requires us to consider others in our decisions, which I think that we've all been practicing a lot in this last year and a half. As such, we are all in this thing together, and we've worked to remove a lot of barriers so students can be together this year and in this learning environment. So we will be watching the data in our county and city closely and continue consulting with the experts at the University of Iowa as we adapt to the ebb and flow of COVID. Right now, we're all masking per the CDC guidelines, regardless of vaccination status, and all students, faculty, and staff are required to be vaccinated unless they have a religious or medical exemption. Students can remove their masks in their rooms, of course, but we ask that they mask in areas of the halls where groups gather. We're already seeing a lot of activation around this on campus in ways that are far different than other campuses. Other campuses, you're seeing students and faculty and staff, some pushing back about mask mandates. This whole thing has become kind of politicized. And here on our campus, our students are so community minded that they're already really masking as just a matter of practice. And what they're activating around is wanting more safety protocols put in place. And I just love our students. I love that they're like that they want to look out for each other, and they really care about this community and they care about the common good. So thank you for raising students who care about others. It's really wonderful to work with them. So let's talk more about student health and well-being. So your students' health and well-being is a priority for us, and it is for our educational mission. So these mitigation efforts will also help to protect the most vulnerable in our community, those who are not able to be vaccinated, those who are immunocompromised, and our children under age 12. So help us to support your students' wellness by reinforcing the practice of self-care also in this time. It has been a difficult 19 months, and almost all people have and do experience trauma at some point in their lives. I think President Harris has talked about how everyone is carrying something and everyone is bringing something. And we know that your students contribute meaningfully to our community, and they also may be carrying some experience from the last 19 months or in their past life that needs attention and self-care. So certainly this past year has offered a lot of opportunities for trauma. Given the pandemic, its disproportionate impact on students of color, Indigenous communities, low-income families, and those with disabilities. Add to that a national reckoning around racial justice, natural disasters around the country and here in Grinnell, people trying to share workspaces at home, often with kids underfoot who are supposed to be homeschooling. We have all been through a lot. We have spent time in my division talking about a trauma-informed return to campus, how we make space for the many ways our students are going to show up, experience life on campus, how they're going to feel about being together or apart from all of you, and how we can be ready to recognize the trauma response in ourselves and in our students as we get through this transition together. It will also be joyful and fun. So my point is, please talk to your student about what they need and remind them that asking for help is a sign of maturity, not a sign of weakness. We are here always, always for our students, and I'll talk about how that shows up later on in the presentation. So let's talk about that fun part, the getting involved. There will be so much going on. There already is. I hope you're hearing that from your students. Organizational fairs, defined clubs and orgs, recreation and athletic events, student government, social events, entertainment, academic clubs, all these things. I would encourage your student to just try new things. And also, don't let them get too discouraged if they don't find their niche right away or their people right away. This is actually really normal, and the friendship market never closes here. They will continue to meet new people in every class, and there are lots of chances for restarts at Grinnell. So if you're hearing from them that they don't feel like they fit in yet, or they haven't met their people, that's normal. Keep encouraging them to try new things, and also feel free to reach out to us, because we can meet up with your student and be like, tell me what you like, tell me what you're interested in. And once we listen, we'll say, oh, well, have you met so-and-so who's also interested in that, and help to make some connections. I usually talk about homesickness, and I'm just not sure how to do that really in this landscape. I feel like some people are still going to be homesick. That's really normal. And I'm sure some of us are just really glad to have a little bit of separation right now. I think what I always advise parents to do is talk now about a communication plan. So just decide together how often you expect to have FaceTime conversations or phone conversations, if you're going to text daily or whatever your plan is. Just have that conversation with your student, have that plan in place so that expectations are clear. And that way it'll kind of bring your anxiety down too. If you haven't heard from your student in a little while, you know when to sound the alarm and when that's just a normal lapse of time. And students are going to start making new decisions. And I know you've played an important role in preparing your students to develop self-agency and decision-making. But this is also not something all students are ready for. So have those conversations now with your student about how involved your student would like you to be in managing things in their life right now. You're so used to doing that, I'm sure. But talk about if they have a roommate conflict. Are you going to coach them about how to resolve that conflict? Are you going to step in and call residence life? Or are you going to let them figure it out for themselves? There's lots of different avenues for that, but have conversations with your student about how their growing independence affects how you be involved, moving maybe from direct conflict manager to coaching role. They're going to have to navigate difficult dialogues, and when it's time for them to shoulder these, and some students already are and some aren't. So just have these discussions with your student, and perhaps you already have, which is great. We would encourage you to let your children explore their independence while they're in college and start making adult decisions in a safe context on our campus. Remember, this is a learning place, not just in the classroom. We want our students to practice adult decision-making so they can go out into the post-college world able to contribute to problem solving in a more just world with a lot of confidence. And so we're here to help coach them as well as they are making these decisions. And it's also okay for them to make mistakes. Failures are part of learning. And again, this is a learning place. So we help them pick themselves up and dust themselves off and remind them that one mistake doesn't define us. It just contributes to our learning. So you will have a new role in this new world, as I've said. And this is where I usually talk about FERPA. It's a federal privacy law. And this is where you want to have discussions with your student about who gets to see the grades and under what conditions. Students can waive their FERPA rights, so you have full access to their educational record, and that's something you can also talk about with your student. If they want to do that, they can come to the academic advising office. They can sign a waiver just for health services. They can sign a waiver just for academic advising, just for student affairs, all three, a combination. It's completely up to them. But that's something you can talk about what information you want to have access to. And also know that in FERPA, there is a health and safety exemption, and Grinnell College has and does use this exemption. So if we're concerned about your student's health or well-being, we will contact you. And if there is any risk of separation with the institution conduct-wise or some other reason, we would be in contact with you. And oftentimes we will work with your student to have them contact you, actually. And we may, we will want to partner with you in those situations to help support your student in their learning and growth and development. So I hope by now some of you have heard the term self-governance. It's part of the fabric of who we are at Grinnell College, and it's not actually about the self. It's about being part of a self-governing community. And it's really in agreement about how we will live in community with one another and grow our skills of becoming active agents of inclusion. how we will be engaged citizens ready for full participation in a global world, and how we think of ourselves in relationship to others. We find Grinnellians to be particularly good at valuing the tenets of self-governance, and we saw that in the pandemic as our students really took responsibility for themselves and considered our wider community and the decisions that they made. We had lots of students actually volunteering in the community, in the healthcare centers, helping us recover from a natural disaster. So we already know our students are so great at this. Self-governance in practice looks like students holding themselves and others accountable for choices and decisions, creating opportunities for other voices to be heard, calling people in instead of calling people out. And it also looks like opportunity. Students will be invited to sit on committees like the curriculum committee, search committees for new employees, policy-making committees. We want them to have a seat at the table where complex problems are discussed, solutions are explored, and decisions are made so that they can practice their own leadership skills. We find that giving students a voice in these circumstances enriches our work, improves our processes, and keeps the student experience at the center of our work. Of course, self-governance also exists within a system of policies, rules at the college, as well as local, state, and federal law. Sometimes our students forget that, and they start to think that campus is a sovereign nation. And that's okay, because they're learners and we're here to help course correct in those educational ways and pick their heads up and see that there's a larger system around them when that's needed. I'm just gonna bring all of these to the forefront. Okay, here we go. So let's talk about safety. Safety can mean very different things to different people. And we've been talking a lot about health safety in the pandemic, and we'll continue with COVID mitigation efforts. And we have a health center on campus with COVID tests. And of course, accessing that is covered in your tuition. So our public health framework will remain. But other forms of safety are critical, as we know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We do enjoy a low crime rate in Grinnell, and we're very grateful for that. We do have a campus safety office with a staff that are not sworn officers. They do not carry guns. They are here to do community policing, which means that we want them out and about, building relationships with students and being there when situations arise to help get medical assistance or give rides or help students who've been locked out of their rooms or pull their cars out of a snowbank, etc. So they are around campus, checking equipment and locking and unlocking doors and in the buildings and around on campus. You can contact them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And through them, you can get to an on-call professional staff member as well, anytime. As I mentioned earlier, safety can mean a lot of things to different people. So as we ask our students to engage in self-governance action, we also train them to do that. Part of self-gov is building a sustaining and inclusive community. And for many of our students, that means emotional, mental, and psychological safety. So our students will be trained in active bystanderism. This is training to intervene and interrupt a situation that doesn't look or feel consensual, to intervene when someone tells an off-color joke that disparages a racial or ethnic group. These things can take practice, and so we train them. We also do trainings on Title IX. We have training on alcohol and other drug use, training on identity development, and we have a lot of student peer mentors who model this and assist. Ask your student at the end of the term about any of these trainings, and if they haven't participated, they should talk to their CAs in the halls. We're also thinking about safety in a virtual world, which really freaks me out. I have a new teenager, and she's all over in her phone, and so we're learning boundaries. And we know that our kids are connected. They're so well connected. I think what I'd like to focus on here is how our students engage each other in the virtual world. There is so much faceless toxicity in social media, and I'd really like to have your partnership in setting expectations for our students that our community exists in the virtual world just like on campus, and we should strive to be inclusive and kind. I think that really matters. And if your student experiences discrimination, bullying online, any of that toxicity, please have them reach out, because we care about that and we want to support your student and we want to address the behaviors where we can. We understand that we want students to understand their personal responsibility. Students are free to make mistakes here, like I said before, and we also want them to take responsibility for their choices, their behaviors, and actions. Our conduct system is meant to be educational. We don't use punitive measures like fines. We really try to understand the developmental stage of each student and then individualize their conduct experience to help them grow to the next level of development. We ask students to partner with us in working on their own development and growth, and we invite your participation there as well. I mentioned a lot of the trainings already, and that's a way to engage in community responsibility. We want our students to be fully engaged in their educational experience, and there will be lots of hot topics for discussion. It's our expectation that students will learn to engage in difficult dialogues and disagree with others while still upholding the humanity of others. We know your students are ready for this, even though it's not being modeled for them right now in the media. They were all engaged in their communities already before coming here, or they wouldn't be at Grinnell. So we know that they're ready. But encourage their patience in this learning and affirm that it's not supposed to be easy or there'd be peace on earth, right? This is a human endeavor. And so people are going to make mistakes and be fully human. Our Grinnell community loves the students. And so there will be lots of opportunities to get involved there as well. Finally, the alert system. We do have tornadoes and apparently derechos, but typically we get a lot of warning, and we are very specific for students not familiar with how to respond. And we also do drills, tornado drills and fire drills. I would encourage you to enroll in a weather app that pings when there are alerts from the National Weather Service having to do with this area. We encourage your students to do the same. And we have an alert system where a mass text will go out if students need to take shelter. And like I said, people sometimes don't know the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning because they didn't grow up here, and that's totally fine. So we spell it out for them in that ping that goes out. And you can also have your student enroll your phone number in that alert system as well. So if you would like to get emergency pings or informational pings, you can have your student enroll you in that service. So just as a refresher, conversations to have and continue to have, grades, who gets to see them, what's the communication plan, what's the communication plan about health status, what about public health, sex, alcohol, and other drugs. As I said early on in the presentation, parents are hugely influential in the behavior choices of their students. It's second only to peers. And so just as a reminder, you still can make a huge impact with the choices that your students make by having conversations about your expectations about these things that they may explore. So encourage you to have those conversations. And here are some of the resources that have been talked about today. Student Affairs, which is my area, Academic Advising, which is Joyce's, and Careers Life and Service, which is not represented in here in our presentation, but they're a great resource. Campus Safety, maybe you want to put this number in your phone. Again, this phone will be answered 24 hours a day, year round. And you can always reach a residence life coordinator or a dean on call. Those are both professional staff teams. We actually have 2-3 levels actually of on-call support for students. So if it's after hours, they can still get a hold of a person, a human, to help them. Student Health and Wellness, we call it SHAW. There's a need to talk line. This number here rings to an emergency mental health line. It's for acute mental health support. It's available 24 hours a day. Students can call that number and they can get a hold of a counselor right away, no matter what time it is, day or night, and just talk through whatever it is that they're experiencing. It's confidential. And so there's just a number there where they can reach out for help. It might be helpful for you to have that number too. We also have enrolled in a program called Virtual Care. Information is going to be going out to students very soon. That program starts September 1st. This is a program where students can access health and mental health virtual services. They can access doctors from thousands and thousands of providers. They can access counselors that they can stay with for many, many sessions. And this offers us a lot of access to a diversity of counseling specialties, languages spoken, identities, so we can better serve our entire campus community who may need access to mental health care. And we are expecting we'll see, higher rates of need after the 1.5 years that we've had. So we are fully prepared and ready to support that need with our students. And then last, I'll mention the Center for Religion, Spirituality, and Social Justice. We love our acronyms at Grinnell, so we call this the CRSSJ. The chaplain and the rabbi and the imam are there and are confidential resources for students. And they also engage a lot in social justice projects, and there's a lending library there and a food pantry. So there are a lot of resources there. And one resource not listed, but I do want to mention it, is that there are a variety of emergency funds that students can access. Thanks to generous alumni and donors, we have been able to build and support funds for students who run into situations that might derail their college experience and otherwise might be derailed, but we can use money that we have to support the student. So for example, a mom is sick, or grandma has died, or they've run into some kind of financial issue that otherwise might lead to a dropping out. We don't want to see that happen, not because of financial need. And so you can access funds through my office, through student assistance. The Dean Marswalt has a fund set up for students. Shaw has funding to help with health and wellness and counseling support, financial support there. So lots of support for students to stay in school, to stay enrolled, and get support in order to be able to do that. Okay, last slide, and then we'll take your questions. Dates to remember. Our classes start in 2 days, which is really exciting. Actually, we're like 1 day away now. Fall break will be October 16 through 24. And I do want to mention that our family weekend, provided we can still have it with COVID, we'll see what happens with Delta, but is September 24th, 25th, 26th. I believe it's that weekend. You can see there that Thanksgiving break is just a weekend, and we do offer a Thanksgiving meal here on campus. The dining hall really goes all out for it. It's quite spectacular. The last day to drop a class is September 10th. And then that last day of final exams for the term is December 18th. And so you may want to talk about if your student will be coming home over the winter break to return on January 24th. And then you can see our spring break and then the last day of exams. But I think the most important date you will want to put on your calendar is Monday, May 19th, 2025, when your students will graduate from Grinnell College. And we'll all be with you there to celebrate. It will be a joyous occasion. All right, that ends our comments. Thank you for your patience. And Elaine, Joyce, and I are really quite happy at this point to take your questions. Mo, I'm not sure I can see them, but.
I can see them, Sarah. I can read them.
Okay.
Okay.
The first one's about communities. Will there be community screening testing for COVID on campus? I can start, and Sarah, if you want to add to that. So we, as Sarah mentioned in her presentation, we do have ample tests at our Shaw Center, and we are currently running regular testing of students who came to campus and were not able to get vaccinated before they arrive, or might have had an exemption from vaccination. And we're doing a lot of arrival testing for them, and we'll do regular testing until they enter a fully vaccinated state. We meet at this point with the changing Delta. We're meeting every 3 or 4 days with a team of doctors and public health specialists and epidemiologists from the University of Iowa to ask all of our questions and to continually refine our refine our protocols. And in fact, we just met this morning with a group of them and asked this very question: should we be doing more community screening than we are doing of our community? And at this point, they're advising us that that does not serve us in any way. But if that does change, we have ample tests available and a lot of experience from last year of doing additional screening. Sarah, is there anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I know student affairs, we're going to have a bunch of tests on hand for students if they need them, especially after hours. So yeah, I think you've covered the rest of it, Elaine.
And so that's talking about our students. We are also, the rest of our community, as we think about the greater Grinnell community, our faculty and our staff. We're looking to the fact that our K through 12 schools have started here in Iowa this week, and we'll be watching, of course, what's happening in those as affects our greater community and cases in that area. And we have purchased test kits as well that we are able to provide faculty and staff who might have somebody in their household, for example, who has tested positive, so that we can be really monitoring the rest of our community health as well.
I see a question from Karen about if COVID gets worse, will fall break travel be curtailed and/or testing required for return to campus? I think, we would continue to monitor, as Elaine says. We're meeting quite regularly as this develops so that we can continue to make really well-informed, data-informed decisions that prioritize the health and safety of our community. And so I can't say for sure how that will be once we get to fall break. But I would imagine that we would do some kind of a return process, much like we did here. And we did not COVID test all of our vaccinated students coming back in to campus. So I think we would explore what that would look like, but I'm not sure that our team of physicians would think that would be necessary.
So
do you want to add anything, Elaine?
Yeah. Maybe I'll just take the next one, which is related to break, about the long October break and short Thanksgiving break that comes in there. And so the long October break is really a mid-semester break. It's designed for academic success and to take that breathing room, to have that week-long break in the middle of the semester, and it literally lands right in the middle of the semester. And while we will be looking to see if there's any reason to curtail travel for that break at a time when we expect to have a fully vaccinated population on campus, we currently also have a requirement for all of our faculty and staff to be vaccinated, and all of our faculty and staff will need to have their first vaccination shot by August 27th if they haven't already, and so that's on Friday. But really, that's about academic success, and particularly with Thanksgiving break being so close to the end of the semester, that's not a good time in the student rhythm of student learning to have a very long break. It would really throw off the end of the semester. It does end up, the 2 days you saw were the Thursday, Friday of Thanksgiving. It does end up being basically a 4-day break, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday part of that break. And we would, of course, be monitoring what's happening at that point in time and if we need to curtail travel there.
Is Grinnell ready for the possibility of a COVID outbreak? What is the plan? Yes, I think we are. We have tried to anticipate everything that we can. Our health team has been incredible. We have statisticians who model things out for us that helps to guide our decisions. That has been very helpful. I think were we to have an outbreak, it would look, at least now with Delta, it would look like vaccine breakthrough cases. And we have a plan for that. We have space for isolation for our students. And then we work with a COVID care team that then tracks the care of that particular student. And we have a nursing team that then checks in with that student regularly. And we work with the faculty advisor about classes. And so it's a really holistic approach to care of a student who tests positive for COVID. So I think that we are ready for that. And one thing I'm assured of after the 1.5 years that we've had is that we will take on anything. We can do it. We can do it. Yeah. And so I don't know if that answers fully your question, Marco, but I hope it helps a little. Diana Hickman, thank you for everything. We are just really happy to have your students with us. Go ahead, Elaine.
Oh yeah, I was looking at the virtual tools. The questions there about Zoom and Google Meet. We are a Microsoft campus, and so we have WebEx, as you can see that we are on here, and we also have Microsoft Teams that are available for students to do remote work and remote meetings, and that's what we have used in the last year, and that has served us. That has served us very well in terms of keeping in touch, and our students keep in touch with one another, as I've learned as somebody who also instructed through the pandemic, as well as being interim dean, through all sorts of other various tools that they're perhaps much more familiar with than I am. We have ample Wi-Fi and as needed laptops to disperse if like the worst were to happen and we had to pivot to perhaps remote learning for a short amount of time due to an outbreak. We're really optimistic that with we think of this as the Swiss cheese model of vaccine protection. That's what, if you Google that, you'll or of COVID protection, right? All the various layers of protection. One of them is a vaccinated population. Another is our indoor mask mandate. Those two together, paying attention to activities and events. We have moved right now to activity level modified blue, we're calling it. Green is kind of business as usual. And in this level, we are reviewing all of the activities or types of activities that are happening on campus for their health and safety protocols. And we are really focused on the in-person activities that best serve our students and other activities. For example, tomorrow morning, our first meeting of the faculty, recognizing that we do not need to get our faculty together in a room all together, 200 faculty, will happen remotely, for example. And so some of the activities that continue to serve our campus but don't serve our students so directly and that can happen remotely will happen remotely.
So do many students stay on campus for Thanksgiving? Yeah, I think a fair amount do. Some choose to go home and some, it's kind of a mixed bag, but we do have a fair amount of students who stay on campus and participate in the Thanksgiving meal in the dining hall. And there's usually also a community meal, and some students like to attend that. We certainly see a lot of our international students staying on campus, and those that would have to fly home. A lot of those students stay as well.
Students will be able to get booster shots there. If students came here unvaccinated, we've been running vaccination clinics. We've already run 2 and we're going to run a 3rd one. If students came here with only having had 1 vaccine shot, we're able to assist them to get the 2nd shot if it's a 2-shot series that they're taking. And should we hit a point at which we're recommending for our population on campus an additional booster shot, we'll be arranging a clinic for that whenever that may happen. Do I have that pretty right, Sarah? Yep. Maybe I'll take the class one as interim dean. Can students who must isolate participate in classes remotely if they're healthy enough to do so? While we may have, we may not have, we don't know yet. In the first few weeks, we'll be very telling students out of class. Even in a normal year, our students get sick, and we do encourage them to stay out of class when they are sick. The thing about COVID is that our students who are positive may well not actually have any symptoms at all. Right? They may have asymptomatic cases, and so certainly be healthy enough to do class activities while we would want them isolated to prevent our community, any sort of asymptomatic community spread. But faculty therefore have different tools by which they will do that. In some cases, it may be participating remotely. In other cases, it may be participating in some way, shape, or form that allows them to keep up with their coursework. And faculty are prepared for that. They deal with this in a normal year. Yeah, so we have outfitted some of our classrooms with camera systems and microphone systems, but not all of them. And so there may be different ways that faculty are going to handle that, but certainly faculty are committed. And as Sarah noted, part of our COVID care team, our SHA team will be in communication with faculty. We will protect health data at the same time and only reveal, and I'll look to Joyce to help me here too. Again, reveal what students are comfortable with to their faculty member and what is needed to support them. They will, the isolation space has good Wi-Fi and and allow them to collect their class materials they may need. Joyce, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think you covered it well. Well, okay. I'll add that there are also staff who will support students. So in addition to, I think, our faculty being very responsive when a student is ill, and like you said, that's always been true. That's part of the mission of academic advising and the Office of Student Assistance, is to support students when something like that is happening and they're trying to also still navigate their academic obligations. So we can provide another layer of support if needed.
All right. Are there any final questions? Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know for some of you it's in the evening, and some of you it's in the morning, and some of you it's at the dinner hour, which is especially challenging sometimes. So thanks for joining us from wherever you are. It is our honor to be able to do this work with your students, and we look forward to a continued partnership with you as we hope that we can get your students thriving and successful at Grinnell College and beyond. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your morning, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Take good care. And Mo, thank you for being awesome, helping us with the technology and being the hero in the background that remembered to hit record, because I did not.
Very
So
well. It's
thank
not,
you for being such a good partner, Mo.
I can
It's
tell
really
you it's
great.
not, it doesn't rise to the level of heroism, but you're very welcome. Yeah, when I schedule the meeting, I set it to record automatically so I don't run the
Oh.
risk of forgetting.
Well, thank you
Better.
for
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for saving us from ourselves.
No.
Thank you. Perfect.
Very, very fine presentation and great information, and I think you're getting some feedback from that in the Q&A, and it's
Great, thanks, Mo. And when the recording is prepared, will you share it with us so we can get it up on the website?
sure, will do. I had one parent message me privately that they were having some trouble with their connection, and I did tell them there would be a recording that you would be sharing.
Okay, great.
Great.
Yep, we'll get that sent out.
Should have that for you in the morning.
Okay, thanks, Mo. Thanks, Elaine and Joyce.
See everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.